Welcome to the Kinky Cast, a sexually explicit podcast for adults. You are listening to a weekly publication, produced every Friday morning. This is our weekly exploration in the kinky world of BDSM and alternative relationships. Today, we present episode 377, a serious talk about bestiality and zoophilia, with the paddle priest, Lord Jericho, and Epona Camelot. Don't forget to stop by our webpage for information about this show and others. kinkycast.com. With the coronavirus being active, please practice social distancing. Here's your host, Woody.
Thanks, Max, and welcome to another edition of the Kinky Cast. Tonight, on this rather serious episode of the Kinky Cast, we have the paddle priest, Lord Jericho, and Epona Camelot from Virginia. How are you guys tonight?
We're good.
Yeah, doing good. Thanks for inviting us on.
Just out living the dream, right?
Yeah.
Trying to. Things doing a lot better these days than, previous times.
Absolutely. Things are starting to look up in the world. We can actually get out once in a while and see some people improving this year. I'm very positively inclined that things are going to happen.
Yeah, we're both working on that, trying to get the vaccines worked out, so we can be safe and keep our health intact. Trying to figure out how to do the same for everybody else, so when events come, everybody can just have fun and lay back and try to put all the stress in the past.
Tonight's show is about bestiality, and that falls into the category of zoophilia. Ms. Camelot, would you tell us what zoophilia is?
So zoophilia is technically a paraphilia involving a sexual fixation on non-human animals. This is how Wikipedia defines it. Within zoophilia, you have bestiality, which is technically where cross species have sexual activity. So between humans and non-humans is what I'm going to be focusing on tonight. In a lot of states, it's illegal. Unfortunately, not in all 50 states is it illegal, but I will get into that more as we go on in the conversation.
The fact is that we want to underline that it is illegal in most places, and there's a real good reason for that. It's an animal can't consent to having sex with you.
Exactly.
They definitely can't. People like to say that we don't know whether they're consenting or not, but for the most part, we should take it that they're not consenting to the things that people are trying to do to them sexually. And we have to stand up for them and be their voices to say, this is not okay, and you're hurting them, and this is not what's best for them.
Yeah, I agree. Like if someone was doing a scene and their mouth was taped and the top suddenly said, oh, they just consented to this, like you should kind of pause for a minute, because how do you know? Like they didn't say anything.
And it goes back to affirmative consent also. If you don't consent to a specific act in a positive way, and you're never going to get that out of an animal, ever.
Never.
Yeah. You don't know what they're thinking, and you can't communicate with them. They can't speak for themselves, so therefore they can't consent.
Their brain functions a little bit differently than ours. I'm not a scientist, but I know that the way they react to things is going to be different than the way we react to things. It's important to understand that we're forcing our pleasures on this animal that is not necessarily have any interest in the things that we want them to be interested in. And we can't force them. There's no possible consent there.
You've done a lot of research on this subject. What led you into this?
I just actually happened upon it. It was definitely not something that I was looking for. I was going through K&P. I had seen over I think a year and a half or 2 years that I had already been on FetLife. I had seen writings about bestiality and people speaking up against it. And there was one name that had continually come up in discussions of how wrong bestiality is, and that she was on FetLife and allowed to be on FetLife, even though she had been reported multiple times. her name is Whitney, Wisconsin, is the tag name that she proudly went by and goes by currently. And I came across something that was on CanP of hers, and there were a lot of comments talking about having sex with dogs and fucking dogs, and she was very giddy in her responses to people. And I ended up clicking on her profile and found out that she had posted a pretty popular writing saying that she had just recently come back and that she was not having to serve her court case. She had been found guilty in the U.S. federal court. And she was done serving the time on that, and she was allowed to be back on the site. And she was promoting in this writing, not only that she didn't feel badly for what she had been found guilty of, she didn't feel badly about her views on having sex with animals, that she was also actively promoting her links to other platforms within this writing that show her having sex with dogs.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the loophole was that of all the charges, she actually at that time only got convicted of child endangerment.
Correct.
Because a child was in the video while she was masturbating.
Yeah, in a public mall.
She managed to get off on the animal charges. So, and I also believe that she did some interviews off site where she was essentially claiming and promoting that she was returning to FetLife and planned to use it to increase her promotion of the idea that people should stop having sex with other people and start having sex with animals instead.
So that pretty much is what brought me to my eyes being opened about bestiality. It's one of these things that exists in the world, but you never realize how bad it is and how prevalent it is in society until you start digging a little below the surface. And that's what I was doing by clicking on her profile and looking at her writings. And I was looking at the comments in her writings and the people who liked it. And I actually went through and blocked everybody who had loved her writing and had commented on it. And then I posted a writing about it. And this was in July of 2019.
Your block list is so big.
Yeah. I blocked over 223 people that day.
Wow.
I mean, she was saying exactly what she was about. She was saying that she thinks having sex with dogs is great, and she was promoting it. And not only that, she was encouraging others
to do it. She was recruiting people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of digging about her, I found out about the felony charges that she had been found guilty of. I found out she was not supposed to be talking about these things as part of her parole, but her parole had just expired the month before she posted this writing. And so she was free to come back to the site. They didn't stop her from coming back on. They had taken her off and deactivated her account while she was in jail and while she was on parole. But once the parole period expired, they just let her, they being FetLife, allowed her to come back on.
They decided that, we have a whole website of people who are trying to practice kink safely and convince people that they're not evil or degenerates. So we're going to let this lady come on who is going to, sully everyone's reputation by trying to convince everybody to have sex with dogs. So, when you're talking to Aunt Margot, next weekend and you're thinking about coming out to her and you have to think, oh, wait, is she going to think I fuck horses if I fuck, if I, stick my willy up a fucking hamster? I don't know, man. It just makes me pissed off.
Yes, I
Well,
could
that's
tell
how I
that.
was feeling. Yeah, I mean, that's how I was feeling. I was really angry. You know, those moments when you're sitting there reading something and your blood just starts to boil and your heart races. That's how I was feeling when I was researching all this stuff and just digging a little bit more and a little bit more. There were a ton of fetishes dedicated to her. There were groups dedicated to her, and it to me, and they were current. It wasn't like years old stuff. You know, there's a considerable amount of history on FET that people haven't been active for 6 or 7 years, but their content is still up and the groups are still up. This was stuff that was current
Because they
and
want to
still
claim how many
going on.
millions of people they have when they don't really have that many.
So I wanted to let my friends know and let my followers know. I didn't have a lot at the time, but I wanted to let others know that this was going on, that it wasn't okay, in my opinion. And I found out that a lot of people agreed with me. So I did a writing that July, and thanks to a number of my friends leaving crumbs and commenting on it, it got blown up. It was huge on the site. And I was getting a number of messages requesting information about what I knew about the court case. And this is all public information, the court case. If someone wanted a link to the information on the case, I was sending it to them and I let them make their own decisions. And it was also her picture and her account and her writing were reported numerous times.
It was one of the most beautiful things I've seen. There were individuals and groups of people who would otherwise try to rip each other's throat out. These are people that you consistently saw shit talking each other all the time, or trying to start fights over any subject they could, or disagreeing about everything and anything. And this one time, everybody stood together and said, nope,
yeah,
not okay with that shit.
And there was so much pressure that Baku went on and did a writing about it. It took about a week where it was just a lot of pressure on John Baku and the caretakers to do something about this. And they finally deactivated her account. And so that was a great success, but I wanted to make sure that they not only deactivated her, but banned her. And there was no way for me to find out whether that happened or not. I reached out to him. I reached out to the caretakers. None of them replied to me. None of them would respond to my emails or direct messages. I would constantly check in and I wouldn't get any updates. And this is a prime example of why people get so frustrated with FetLife and the management team, because they just don't communicate at all with the members when this kind of stuff happens. They might do something, but then they want it to go away.
All right, wait, hold up.
Is the impression that
they give lip service to do it. The pattern is something will happen. They will avoid dealing with it or not deal with it. Say it's not a problem, say it doesn't exist, and then suddenly, when shit hits the fan too loudly, there'll be some grand thing about how, oh, we realized we fucked up, we've learned from things, we're going to do better, we have this grand plan to fix everything, you guys just hold on and watch us go to work. Then everybody will get distracted, go off, try to enjoy their lives because they think, okay, you know what? That's in the past, let's move on. And then once that happens, about 3 weeks later to maybe 6 weeks later or so, nothing changes. Or you'll see some little like low writing that will say, oh, sorry, we thought we could do something, but it turns out that's too hard, so we're not going to be able to do it. And you realize, fuck, same shit, different day.
Well, I assume when they deleted her profile, I'm kind of guessing that she probably reappeared under a different name in some dark corner.
I'm sure she did. And a lot of us kept our eye out trying to see if she was coming back on under different profiles. They actually didn't delete her account.
It might be deleted by now. I think when we saw that, it was like about 6 or 7 weeks ago, maybe.
They deactivated her account, and that's what Baku had announced. And then there was silence. There wasn't any follow-up to it. He said they were going to get back to the membership about it, or the community. And unfortunately, there wasn't any follow-up to it. I know that myself and a number of others kept requesting updates about it, but we didn't get it. So I found that Whitney, Wisconsin was just the tip of the iceberg with bestiality on FetLife, that there was a huge number of groups dedicated to bestiality, that there were a number of members whose account names were inside terms, and
there were codes.
They were codes
to let people in the know that we're like you. Let's do this, whatever the fuck,
I learned a lot of information, and it got overwhelming for me. So I had to step back from it for a month or two.
I don't know how you got through all that stuff, but after you showed it to me, I had to stop after a few minutes.
Yeah, it was a lot of the stuff I saw, not just on FET, but off of FET. I laid off of it for a couple of months, and then I kept asking what was going on with her case. And if I came across something where someone was obviously bragging about being into bestiality and advertising for it, I would bring it to the attention of the caretakers and do what I was supposed to do, which was report, which is what they tell us we need to do to get stuff addressed to them. I didn't see any action with those follow-up reportings for other accounts. Then in July of this past year of 2020, someone had sent me a screenshot showing that Whitney, Wisconsin was still in a person's friends list. I was surprised. I thought that if she was taken off the site, that she shouldn't show up in someone's friends list. So I did a little bit of digging, and I found out that not only was she still on the site, not necessarily active, because it was pugs when I would try to search for her account, but there were still fetishes and groups that were very active, and people were still joining them and using them, and they were dedicated to her and to bestiality. So I did another writing and mentioned it and provided the screenshot. I blacked out all the personal information for everyone else except for Whitney, Wisconsin. She was the only one whose profile you could see in this friends list. Everything else was completely blacked out, so no one could see it, because I wanted to make sure I was keeping people's privacy and following the terms of use for the site. And
just in case they joined her because they saw some hot pics of her and didn't really realize the truth of who she really is.
Right.
Got to be fair.
And I reported and asked about it, and again, crickets. I kept following up to that.
Yeah, and then you learned about some of the new code words, and you learned that not only with the naming of their profiles, they would do things like have pictures on their profile that showed a whole bunch of dildos. And in amongst the dildo, if you look closely, you might discover a dildo that was shaped to represent the penis of a dog. But they would have those all over their profile. And
those by themselves, I can't say that I don't have a problem with it, but that's not making them guilty of bestiality. It's combined with the groups that they're members of and their fetishes, and it's the whole picture about the person. There are a number of people that I come across regularly who openly admit to being into having sex with dogs and into bestiality or sex with horses and various other animals, and they have it in their About Me section on their main profile page. And they have pictures of their animals in their photo gallery, and they offer their animals to be used for sex by anyone who wants to contact them. So there are people who hide it, and then there are people who are just blatantly public about this. And even when you report it, it's not taken down. And I have met so many other FET members in the community who have spent years reporting this stuff to the caretakers and to John Baku, and nothing is done about it. In fact, some of them are penalized themselves for reporting it and making a big stink that these profiles are being allowed to stay on the site. And it's just really frustrating, and it makes me angry that we're told to follow the rules and to not do A, B, and C. When we see others breaking the rules and we report them, nothing is done about it. It's led to, it's not just this, it's not bestiality being allowed, it's led to a lot of people leaving the site. I had those writings all of a sudden were taken down in November, and there was no explanation sent to me of why it was taken down. So I can be extremely annoying, and I will make sure to get an explanation for something.
People think I'm stubborn.
I won't let something go if I feel like I should be given an answer for something, like, why did you take one of my writings down? And so I emailed the caretakers for 13 days straight. And finally, on the 13th day, after no response, I finally got an answer saying your writing was removed because it named and shamed another member using a direct link to their profile. This goes against our guidelines, I'm afraid. They took another writing down. So I'm not sure which one it was referencing. I don't know if it was.
They took them all down at the same time.
Yeah. They took hers, the one with the screenshot, down about Whitney, and then they took another one down where I did not name the person. I talked about his profile and said it was on there and that had been reported and nothing had been done after several reports. I know the terms of use very carefully, and I'm trying to be very careful so things don't get removed and that they follow within the rules that I'm given. When I got that, the 13 days later, when I got that response, all of a sudden, all of the groups that had Whitney, Wisconsin's name in it were gone, and all of the fetishes were gone. So I'm not sure why they cleaned everything up suddenly. The first time that I wrote this in...
Well, we know now, but we'll get to that later.
July of 2020. Again, I don't know if she's been banned or if they just deactivated her and made sure she doesn't show up in anyone's friends list.
The one cautionary note that I want to throw out here to anybody that thinks they want to be in one of these groups, law enforcement does troll FetLife. And I know several people that are charged with doing that.
So do we.
And so if you think that having something leading in your profile about bestiality or any other illegal activity is going to go unnoticed, you are wrong, because that will launch an investigation that could go on for years building a case against you. So that is a cautionary note.
I agree. So that's basically the A to Z of how I got involved. I've been accused of looking for this stuff intentionally to get attention on me, and it's a kink site, and sex with animals is just a kink, and there's nothing wrong with it. I've been accused of leading mob of people. I don't let those people affect me. It's really sad that they think that I'm going out of my way to make my existence on FET all about bestiality and finding these people who are breaking the law. That's not what I'm looking for. It just happens to so that I have learned a lot about this topic, and I know what to look for at this point, and I know what the key words are, and I know what they're really saying when they're talking about one topic, but they're actually talking about bestiality. Part of me wishes that I didn't know about these things, but actually I'm glad that I do, because it's given me a new outlook on FET. It's also helped me understand when people in the past have told me that there's a lot of stuff going on here that is not legal. I wouldn't necessarily argue with them, but I would say, oh, I don't see it. It's given credibility to a lot of people's points of view and statements that FET management doesn't always take these things seriously and tends to look the other way, even when it's brought to them on a silver platter.
Well, I want to say something about that real quick. There
Yeah.
is 9 million FetLife profiles, and
Right.
there is a small handful of caretakers. And yes, they might be slow in reacting to something, but they're trying to gather facts also. And I'm not condoning this, but the reality is it's a small machine with a big following, and they're
Yes.
trying to
Yeah.
stay up with
I
it.
agree with you.
And then also, if you take the wide expanse of kinks out there and say which one is legal and which one is not, we are skirting right on the edge of the law all the time. You
Very
cannot
true.
consent to battery, for instance. That's a law in many states. When you get into something like bestiality, which is so incredibly wrong and highly illegal with many years of prison sentence attached to it, you really want to stay away from this.
Right. You don't want to have your name attached to it at all, because it's not so much that the public might see it, but it's your fellow community members might see it and get the wrong idea simply because you loved a picture and decided to follow someone because you liked their
and you had no
initial
idea. You were
picture.
just sitting there like, hey, that person looks hot. Should you be blamed for what that other person is doing with their life? No, you should not. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, and that if you're sitting there and just a hypothetical scenario, you're recently out to a friend. You spent who knows how long fretting and being scared of the result of outing yourself to your friend. You finally got the strength. You spent years trying to find the first person that you could trust to reveal your full self to. And you finally do it. And it's only been a few weeks. You're spending time as a friend getting to know the true you finally. So you pull up your phone, you log on to a website, kink related, and you pull up a picture of Whitney, Wisconsin. And suddenly your friend says, hey, isn't she the dog fucker? Are you into fucking dogs? Do you want to have that conversation? Have you ever seen anybody fuck a dog? Is that what they do? And how many people do you know in this lifestyle that you're in that does that?
Well, it must be all kinksters then,
That's not a conversation. It's to an extent, because now you have to go through the process once again of showing that, listen, just because I'm a kinkster, just because I like to spank an ass, just because I like to get tied up and hung upside down, just because I like to get needles injected to me, just because I like pain or giving pain, it doesn't make me a bad person. A real kinkster will sit there and they will do their best to do it as safely so that they and their partner will get out of it without any serious long-term harm.
With
and that's
full
what
consent
we want
along the
everybody.
way.
Yes,
Exactly.
with consent. And that's what we want everybody to know. Ideally, people want a day where we can not have to hide. And if we ever want to see that day, we must take a stand against the things that are going to destroy that opportunity. And one of the main principles that everybody stands by, that you hear everybody parrot, whether they're authentic about it or whether they're just trying to get brownie points with it, is consent matters. If you don't have consent, something is wrong. And animals and children can't consent. So therefore, while you might want to have some argument about mental illness, while you might want to have some argument about whether it counts as a fetish, the point is that if you allow that to become an active part of the community that is going under the radar, and then when everybody encounters it, there's a group of people saying, just let it slide, or don't worry about it. Why is it a big deal? you're creating a scenario where the entire kink community is under threat by this.
Well, they're painted with the brush.
They're painted with it because they're always going to have to face the idea that when they're talking to someone, in the back of that person's mind, they're thinking, do you also know people who have sex with children or animals?
Absolutely.
And I don't think that's something that we should allow to be included.
Back when
I just wanted to add, sorry, go ahead.
Back when NCSF did all the work to get DSM-4 updated to DSM-5 and take the illegality away from being gay and having kinks and things like that, we had to move out of the shadows and carefully proceed into society without being accused of being mentally ill. This is not helping that trip.
No, it's not.
And that's why I get frustrated. I understand that the caretaker team is a small team, and I understand the numbers of members that they say are coming onto the site regularly, daily. But as someone who is in IT myself, and I work in cybersecurity, I have knowledge of how easy it is to set up a system to pick up keywords. And it wasn't hard for me to learn these key terms. And it's disappointing that from what I've seen, these keywords are not used in combination with each other, are not flagging the management team and the caretakers to problem accounts. I understand they have to investigate things. I understand it takes a while once something's reported that they have to check everything out. They can't just kick someone off the site or deactivate them.
Yeah.
I want them to acknowledge that, hey, we got your report, or we got all this feedback about this profile. We're doing something about it. It's not hard to do that, in my opinion. Communication is so important, and we as human beings learn that from a small age through adulthood, how important communication is. And that's all I'm hoping for, that us speaking out about this topic will shine a light on how dangerous bestiality is to be allowed on the platform of FetLife, and how much of a danger it is to all of us who are kinksters, who are just trying to live their lives of who they are. I'm trying to think of the best way to say that. It like you said, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to have these things going on and continue to be allowed to go on.
Yeah, and I'm sure someone's going to be like, oh, well, they have all these legal concerns and that's why they're not reaching out. And to that, I call bullshit. And I can give a perfect example. I'm not saying if someone has a dog dildo in their profile, that means that they're trying to fuck dogs. No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that if they have that, and then they have a code name, and then if you look at their comments and you see discussions, you add up all the pieces, and then you make a decision. Now people who report don't need information about the person or what action was taken. But I play Overwatch on PlayStation. Okay. So if someone is being a complete douchebag and sabotaging a game or assaulting someone verbally, you can report them. And all you receive is, thank you for your report. We'll look into it. And then later you'll receive we looked into it and action was taken, but they make it clear they're not going to share the details. And it's simple. They are respecting you for your efforts and saying thank you. And then they are giving you a very brief follow-up. That's, copy and paste, but they're at least saying, listen, we took the time, we made a decision, we can't provide the exact details with you, but something was done about it. And you don't even get that.
Here at the Kinky
And
Cast,
even
we
worse,
run into the
sometimes
same.
people are actually like threatened by when they speak up about it. So
Here at the Kinky Cast, we run into the same situation when people look at my friends list and they say, this person is exhibiting predatory behavior. So I go in, I check it out. And if in fact it is verifiable, I will then go in and drop them like a hot potato. I have no intention.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
I have no intention of promoting it.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. And so when somebody sends me a note about that, I respond to them and say, I'm going to look into it. And then I get back to them and say, I've taken action. And this is what you can expect from any organization, or should expect from any organization.
Communication.
Mm-hmm. Which is another principle we're supposed to stand
Yes, it
by.
is.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being on the show tonight. And this is important stuff that we've talked about.
Thank you for letting us talk about it.
Well, it's important that people hear.
I wish we had more laughs like last time.
Yeah, last time was a lot funnier, but this was serious stuff tonight, and it's important stuff tonight. Thank you again.
It's been an honor, sir.
You have been listening to episode 377 of the Kinky Cast. For more information about this show, go to kinkycast.com. Views expressed are not representative of the management of the Kinky Cast. We welcome guests with opposing viewpoints. The Kinky Cast is a production of Rooster in the Round. On behalf of all our Kinky crew, I'm Max.